Hello everybody, Cam Sweet here from the Garage Connection, coming to you today with a video about Ford truck alignment, specifically any of the F250 and F350 models that have either the solid front axle or have the twin traction beam front axle. So if you're looking to get your truck aligned, specifically with the camber and caster, and you're looking to know how to do that, we're going to go ahead and talk about it today. So stick with us. Hopefully we can get your questions answered. Okay, so when it comes to these trucks, there's a common misconception that you cannot affect the angle of the knuckle because it is a solid front axle, right? Because this C is welded onto the tube and it's not going to change, all right? So that is inaccurate. There are ways to adjust your caster and your camber on these trucks, and we're going to go over specifically when you should do that, all right? So number one thing, if you have an OBS, so pre-97, 97 and before, F250 or F150 with the twin traction beam front end, that's that one that kind of looks like the seesaw, the two different front axles, you need to make sure your leaf springs, your ball joints, and everything with the front end is solid and tight before you go messing with this, all right? Those trucks, when they take a load or when they lift, they are constantly adjusting their camber shims, all right? Their camber angle if you look at the front end, when the truck comes off the ground, the tires tip in, or excuse me, when it gets loaded, it tips in. When it comes off the ground, they tip out on top, all right? So that is going to be constantly changing. You cannot mess with this if you have one of those trucks unless your springs are good, all your leaf spring bushings are good, your front end bushings are good, your ball joints are good, and your hub bearings are good. Okay, so how any adjustments are made to this front end is through this upper ball joint sleeve. Okay, this is where all the adjustments are made. Now, if you look at my ball joint sleeve, it looks a little bit different than what's going to be in your truck. Let me get this ABS sensor out of the way. Okay, because you can see mine is like hexagonal. Right? It's because this is an aftermarket one. I'm going to show you what the original ones look like and the actual procedure to go ahead and get this done on your truck. All right, so step one, the first thing you want to do is you want to go ahead and take a look at your bushings. Most trucks, unless they have a known issue, are going to have this bushing in it right here, okay? This is a 0-degree bushing. Its part number is 44507, okay? This is what's most likely going to be underneath the nut of your upper ball joint, okay? And as you can see here, this flat side is going to fit up against this boss on the upper axle C, okay? So it's going to sit against there, and it's going to make it so this doesn't turn. All right, so now as we look at the 0-degree one, this is going to be where you want to start out, okay? What you're supposed to do, if you want to properly compensate for any issues with the axle, you're supposed to get two of these bushings. You're supposed to install them in your upper ball joint, tighten the nut down, and then you're supposed to go get the truck in alignment, okay? Now, my truck, I didn't have these, all right? I had some uneven tire wear on my front end, and I could see that the top of my tires were tipped in, okay? And when I pulled mine out, I had these, all right? This is a 0 and then a 1/2-degree one. Now, if you look at these next to one another, you can see that the hole for the upper ball joint to sit in is further that way than on this one, right? I'll put them right next to each other. Now, you can see that, okay? So this is an example of an alignment type of bushing. If I flip it over, it becomes very apparent that there is a difference. Okay, much thicker on one side than on the other. This one is pretty uniform the whole way around. All right, this is because this bushing is a 0-degree caster and a 5-degree camber bushing. All right, so it was tipping the top of my tires in, and that's a no-no. All right, so step one, you want to go ahead and get two of these, and you want to put them in your truck. Now, how do you go about getting this into the upper ball joint? All right, I can promise you, if you have a truck that's anywhere north of, oh, I don't know, let's say Georgia, that bushing is not going to want to come out of there. All right, luckily there is a tool for this. Okay, so Specialty Products Company, right, has this tool, 77880. Okay, when you buy this thing, it's about $100. I think I got mine on eBay. this is the tool right here, okay? And what this tool does is when you take the top nut off, you are going to slip this tool under the ball joint bushing, and then as you tighten this center screw down, it's going to draw that upper ball joint bushing out. All right, so if I were to take one of these bushings, it would basically sit in there, and then as this screw goes further and further down, it withdraws the bushing out of the axle, okay? Don't go and beat at it with a hammer and a chisel and screwdrivers and try to get this damn thing out. All you're going to do is ruin the axle, okay? Spend the money, buy the tool, do it the right way, okay? So you take this tool, you withdraw the upper ball joint bushing, you go ahead and install your 0-degree one, and then you take the truck to an alignment shop, okay? And you get an alignment on paper, right? Now that alignment that you get on paper is going to dictate what upper ball joint bushing you order, all right? Okay, when I did this with my truck, what I discovered is this axle from the factory has a slight tipping of the front tires inward, ever so slightly, okay? And it had the normal caster angle of like 3 degrees or something like that. So what I chose to do is I bought an 1.5 inch bushing, correction bushing, okay? But the nice part about when you buy one that is hexagonal like this is it can go in any way you want it to, okay? So this bushing can be used to increase or decrease your caster or camber angle, or to change both of them at the same time, and that's what I chose to do, all right? So what I did is I put this in at a 45-degree angle so that it pushed the top of my tires out by around 0.8 degrees, and it tipped my knuckles back around 0.8 degrees. Now, for those of you who haven't had any experience with this, it's a known problem on the 2005 and up Super Duties that if you put a lift on it, you have what's called death wobble, okay, or an uncontrollable reverberation of the steering system. People usually throw a lot of money at it and still have death wobble. And one of the reasons that that happens is because the steering, when you drop this axle and you use either a longer coil spring or you don't put a drop bar for that front radius arm that connects to the front suspension, when you drop it, you're actually tipping the front axle forward ever so slightly. And that is very detrimental to your truck's ability to self-correct its steering wheel, to self-center, and to kill off those vibrations. So these shims, if you have no issue with your caster or your camber angle, but you have death wobble, and you want to go ahead and buy one of these correction bushings, there's a few aftermarket companies. I think Carlini or Carly Suspension sells them. All the ones I got are from Specialty Products Company. So you want to go ahead and put the right bushing in there, depending on how you want to affect your truck's front end. And then you'll notice that that's actually going to tip the knuckle out, in, forward, back, depending on what you're trying to do, okay? So you put that bushing in there, you screw it on down, and you're going to be good to go, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in the description of the video, I'm going to put a link to this puller, and I'm going to put a link to the Specialty Products Company website that they actually have a chart that has all these bushings. Just on a side note, you know, if you got an F150, the older style that takes these same upper bushings, they do have an adjustable one where it's got like this bushing is like 2 different pieces, and you kind of turn the inside of it and turn the outside of it, and you can mess with the angles. I don't recommend that on any of the 250 and 350s. All right, it's kind of a big gamble, and really I prefer something solid like this. All right, so hopefully this video helps you out and maybe answers some of your questions. And you know, if you have any other questions or whatever, let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to answer them for you. As always, as everybody says, right, like and subscribe. It helps out the channel. So for now, it's Cam Sweet from the Garage Connection. Stay on those projects.